Hello, and welcome to the Sexuality and Gender in Manga podcast, where we apply a critical and academic lens to depictions of human sexuality and gender as they manifest in the medium of manga. I am Ren. I hold a degree in psychology from the University of Waterloo with a minor in sexuality, relationships, and family studies. I'm also a candidate for masters.
Masters for candidate.
Masters for candidate.
Not anymore.
Not anymore. No, they're kicking me out. I'm also a master's candidate for psychology and counseling arts, and I volunteer with a sexual assault support center in the field of crisis intervention. I don't work in any capacity in the art of talking, apparently. My partner on this pod and in life and love in general is Dr. J. Andrew DeMann, an associate professor of teaching at St. Jerome's University and an Eisner Award-winning comics scholar who studies and teaches manga at the university. Today...
I went elaborate here.
You did. Today we are joined by Dr. Michael Hancock, a lecturer in the English department at the University of Waterloo, who specializes in game studies with a background in rhetoric, pop culture, and technical communication. Is he also a published mathematician? Yes, he is. Is Andrew intimidated by Michael's intellect? Constantly, despite years of collaboration and interaction.
Welcome, Michael.
Thank you. That's very kind.
Okay, so I'll introduce our text, I guess, first, and then...
Sure. I do love that you made me read that.
So Sailor Moon is a legendary 1991 manga series published in the pages of Nakayoshi, a shoujo magazine owned by Kodansha. It produced 18 tankobon by the end of its run in 1997, and, of course, a legendary anime adaptation that debuted in 1992 and was dubbed in 1995. This anime played a huge role in popularizing both anime and manga in the US. Sailor Moon was the brainchild of Naoko Takeuchi, a pivotal female creator in the manga industry. Upon graduation from pharmacy school, Takeuchi immediately submitted her first manga, Love Call, to Kodansha. It was an instant success. She was 19 years old at the time. She later married Yoshihiro Togashi, author of Hunter x Hunter, thus forming the ultimate manga power couple. She started a studio to manage her business properties, which has since expanded to include other animes, including her husband's. So this is a genuine trailblazer we're talking about, and I think that context is important. We should also note, however, the wealth of stories about how the popularity of Sailor Moon placed a lot of pressure on Takeuchi to fulfill corporate ambitions. And she herself has recounted how she sometimes felt like she lost creative control of the franchise. So as said previously, we're joined by Dr. Michael Hancock. Michael, would you like to start us off by telling us about your experience of Sailor Moon?
I spent a lot of time thinking about this, and actually sitting down and reading the manga really reminded me of a lot. That I had, I would say, three major encounters with this text that I hadn't even realized until I sat down and went through. The first is that reading the comic just unleashed this memory of actually having watched the anime, but just one episode, because it played on a cable channel, which we did not have at home, but we did have at our grandmother's. So that was the time to really sit down and watch things. And usually we did not watch Sailor Moon because... I had two brothers, and this was the girly show, comparatively. But this time there were no other cartoons on, so... Yes. And it was specifically, I remember this very clearly, it was the wedding episode where they go to the bridal salon and so forth, and that was both very striking, and I remember how, like... Even in the one episode glimpse, this mystery of Tuxedo Mask just like kind of overwhelmed almost any other memory of the episode for me. Mm-hmm. And he seemed like so impossibly mysterious, and and then I read the manga and I'm like, oh right, this is a 17-year-old. My second encounter with it was a few years later when my English teacher was talking about essentially problems with gender in media, and how a former student of hers had recently given university level a conference presentation on Sailor Moon. And she said, after this discussion about her skirts and long legs, I'm not going to let my daughters watch this anymore. And this was both like I didn't even notice that when I was watching as a kid. And second, I think it was the first time I really this is something you can do. An academic who studies pop culture is a thing that exists in the world.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, and that was pretty foundational to where I went from there. And I'll go very briefly over the third one, but I have never stopped encountering Sailor Moon in a way, because Steven Universe, She-Ra and the Princesses of Power, Star versus the Forces of Evil, the Western cartoons I've been watching for the last decade were all Sailor Moon,
right,
or came from her.
Yeah, 100%. The reskin. So I think what maybe we're touching on here is the thing that I think we have to talk about with Sailor Moon is the extent to which this is a progressive representation, or a conservative representation, something that ultimately reaffirms sort of hegemonic traditions of gender representation. Is she empowered? Is she sexualized? Is she objectified? Can it be multiple things overlapping at the same time? Now, as white men, Michael and I will likely get the ultimate social say. But as a woman, how did you react to Sailor Moon?
Oh God, that's so much pressure. Are you making me the mouthpiece for a woman here? Because that's patriarchal in a different way. Yeah, wow, how dare you? No, on a personal level of reaction, I kind of want to be a hot girl who cries and then suddenly and everyone's enemies are just gone and dead. That works for me. I cry enough that you know what? It's all good. No, I do think it's very complex because there are components of it that are very patriarchal in a way, the idea that the main protagonist is this woman who just cries and is hot, and she really doesn't want to be a fighter in any way. She's kind of forced into it, and the idea that women don't necessarily have that kind of natural aggression that would put them into a place where they would assume this role automatically. It has to be something that they're forced into. So I can see it going that way. On the other hand, there are also cool badass women who just beat the shit out of men, and that's kind of great. So it's a little bit of both. There are ways in which the presentation, particularly in the drawings and the style of it, can be construed as very regressive, and exactly what Michael was talking about, the short skirts and the long legs and stuff. It could be argued that that's kind of a style because long limbs are sometimes just a thing people do. For the kicks, I guess. That wasn't meant to be funny. But overall, I found it engaging, if nothing else. It was something that I would definitely continue to read more of and watch more of, even though this is my first encounter with Sailor Moon entirely. So thank you for that, Michael. But I can see why there is appeal to it. I can see why it is empowering for some people. I don't know that I would personally define it as empowering for me, but I would say it's very intriguing and something that I would continue to be drawn to. And Tuxedo Mask is pretty hot. That's
enigmatic. He's ready for the wedding.
He's ready for the wedding.
Writing the title.
One of the things I really liked about it is that it's not traditionally, especially in this time period, the female lead, it has to be impossibly noble. Right. And she gets there's tons of stories about the male doofus lead that goes on to become now over the long course becomes now I'm a good person, now I can do all these things. To have that in a female role still feels unusual and probably a little far to say transgressive given the rest of the thing, but it feels fresh in a way that kind of, despite its age, I should guess.
Yeah, I think one of the things that a lot of scholars talk about is how when you empower women in comics or manga, it's often by masculinizing them. And Sailor Moon could not be further from that. Even the art style just screams shoujo aggressively. Everything very about her so. Is hyper feminine and still powerful.
I prefer the brand of feminism where instead of making women masculine, you make them into fungus or some other like evil creature of the depths. Yeah, monstrous femininity is my jam.
Yeah.
Well, I appreciate we eventually get there with like, oh, all of the evil people are led by queens here too. So
Now, okay, so the genre that Sailor Moon has spurred is the title of what I think is one of the most famous works of manga scholarship, which is Beautiful Fighting Girl by Saiko Tamaki, I believe. I might have that wrong. Anyway, I use it a ton in my manga course.
So you should probably know it.
I should probably know it.
Yeah.
If my students are listening. Like, he docked me marks on the test for that one, but he doesn't know it either. One of the things he talks about is how there can be layers of irony to these representations, where the character is potentially hyperfeminine in a way that is, again, a little ironic. So it's not actually embracing hyperfemininity, it's sort of exploding it. It's taking it to a point of absurdity in order to comment on the sort of superficial veneer that, let's say, hegemonic femininity represents. There's a lot of like buzzwords I threw. So what do we think about like the idea of Sailor Moon as being almost carnivalesque, as being way over the top and not serious in the way that it's approaching gender, and how that might be missed by certain audiences when approaching it?
okay, starting with the argument in favor.
Sure.
It puts a lot of emphasis on some of the dress-up aspects of this.
Right.
That, she can create a costume at will, and it plays literally no role in the plot, but she has fun with it, so that's... And the way like they shout makeup before they transform kind of lends itself to that kind of thing too. Against... I think it's a little too, like, it is too foundational a text in the magical girl genre to argue that, oh, it's deconstructing tropes that it's establishing.
That might not exist yet.
Yeah, like, what is it? Magica Puella
Madoka Magica.
Yes, that is pretty clearly a deconstruction.
Of Sailor Moon,
Yeah.
I love Madoka Magica.
Yeah.
It's great.
It's dark.
Yeah.
That's the best part. I don't want to be happy. Yeah, I think I'm kind of in the same boat as Michael here, because, like, I think, again, in order to deconstruct it, you would have to have an established precedent, and there isn't that because Sailor Moon is establishing the precedent. But on top of that, like, I don't think that even just the ways some of the main characters interact with the world in general is, like, over-the-top dramatic, carnival-like, because in their real lives, like, one of them is studying to be, like, a doctor or whatever, and that's realistic, and she has strict parents who, you know, keep her on track with that, and then, like, even our main girly pop, she's more of a caricature in a way because of the way that she interacts with the world and the crying that she does and just wanting to be like a cute pretty girl. But like, I can't say I haven't met women like that.
Yeah.
Not exactly line by line that, but I know some depressed girlies, and I know some women who care very much about the way that they look and the way that they present themselves to the world, and they care about that more than other things. It's not my preference, and I don't think that's the only thing about them, but I don't think it's so far out to be a caricature of what women are. That being said, the crying does push that a little bit for me. Into just the realm of, like, almost absurdity and making fun of women. And some of their powers are a little, like, some of them are empowering, but then some of them are kind of making fun of women, like, women cry too much and that's how they deal with battle and stuff. Like, you just have to sonic screech at them because you have too many feelings. That's what women do. So that part of it is kind of a little weird to me, but it is still relatively grounded, I would say, in most capacities.
Sure. I've got a quote here from someone whose first name I didn't write down, but their last name is Yatron, so I'm just going to say Dr. Yatron. Quote, My argument then is that on the surface, the Sailor Moon franchise appears to be a heteronormative and an arguably anti-feminist series with traditional heterosexual relationships and gender stereotypes. But upon closer examination, the manga and anime series subvert patriarchal and gender stereotypes in both obvious and discreet ways.
I can actually jump in there. Cassandra Hitaran.
Oh, thank you, Cassandra.
That happened to be the one scholarly work I selected for this.
We're good. So what is your take on Cassandra Yatron's vision?
She's taking, if I remember, a more like expansive look at the entirety of the thing. And
yeah.
I mean, one of the things, like one of the ways that you get beyond stereotypes is through an ensemble cast.
Yes.
The ensemble cast, they're gathered here. They're not really here. It's Sailor Moon and a bunch of people standing around responding to Sailor Moon for the most part.
Yeah,
it's very true.
I think once you get into some of the broader elements, I understand there's queer subtext coming down the road
Very much
eventually,
so.
but
not even subtext, text.
Great, but yeah, it's not here.
Right.
It's all crushes on the
cute boy.
Yeah.
Tuxedo Man.
I mean, like, and the arcade guy.
Oh, yeah, and the arcade guy. Gets, like, completely forgotten about briefly when Tuxedo Mask comes into play.
I could have sworn he was one of the pretty Bishonen villains.
Cute boy.
Okay, so my favorite quote on what shoujo manga is, and this comes from a few sources, but I'm going to quote Fujimoto Yukari here. The core question of shoujo manga are, who am I and where is a place for me? So when we talk about like empowerment, then obviously that's kind of a rather big piece of it, the link between empowerment and identity and empowerment and fit into a sort of real world context. So if we read that into Sailor Moon, the question becomes, who is she and where is a place for her?
See, that's a fascinating question because...
Thank you.
You're welcome. Good boy. Sorry. I would argue that she doesn't have a place in a way. That the place that she ends up finding is one that she is subjected to, not one that she chooses, and therefore it is not inherently something that is hers. And like they kind of touch on that as we were talking about in Madoka Magica in general. Like the fact that they have to make a wish isn't a choice really. It's something that is forced upon them and they pay consequences for it.
Right.
So I don't know that I would say she has a place in this world. And even the one she does kind of carve out within that is a very tenuous one that she like actively kind of doesn't want. She doesn't want to be a magical fighting girl. She wants to just be a normal student who sleeps in.
Yeah. Not even a good one.
Not even a good student.
She just wants to exist.
Yeah. I think my favorite line of the whole thing is like you've got to go to the arcade so we can strategize. And she's like, oh, but I was planning to go home and sleep.
Yeah. Which is, oh my god, what a mood.
Yeah, I mean, that's a big piece of it. Being relatable.
And
it is, yeah.
The reincarnation rhetoric kind of reinforces that too. Like you're not finding your own role, you are finding the role you already had, and we are putting you back into take your place up again.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, and then I think the question for me is kind of who is it for in a way, because who's finding their place in this that is actively trying to go against, the call to duty that we see her having, right? Like she doesn't want the role. So who is that for, right? Like what?
No, I totally know what you mean. I think that's an important piece because as you said, there's this protagonist who doesn't want the fantasy that she's literally handed. But I would argue as the readers, we're kind of maybe of two minds. Like on the one hand, I want to be given this superpower by my magical talking cat best friend.
Woo!
And to be beloved by all the men and join this elite squad. Like that's such a power fantasy. But at the same time, I also hard identify with, I just want to go sleep in. Do you know what I mean? I don't want the pressures of life. I kind of want to walk it back and take it easy.
And the other thing with this volume in particular, like the other half of the fantasy here is, I want this cool, mysterious 17-year-old boy to really like my 14-year-old self.
Yep.
And,
Which is...
I think that's a big part of who is this story for. It's a romance story.
Yeah. In real life, that's not the romance I want. God, no.
I think there's like maybe the problematic aspect that Sailor Moon does have a lot of, let's say, male gaze following. And that's where those age dynamics become problematic. I know you and I have talked about the in X-Men comics.
Problematic age dynamics?
Don't even. We've talked in X-Men comics, the Kitty Pryde Colossus relationship. I've said, I think on microphone with you, I love the idea that Kitty would form a romantic attachment to this is a 17, 18-year-old beefcake. That makes so much sense. What I don't love is when Colossus forms a reciprocal relationship with Kitty Pryde, because he should be saying no. And instead, the series explores it as if it's a legitimate romantic relationship as opposed to a crush. Usagi should have a crush on Tuxedo Mask. Tuxedo Mask should not be pursuing a 14-year-old girl. So to me, it works from this very grounded sort of pubescent feminine fantasy. But when it operates outside of that, that's when it becomes more problematic for me. Does that make sense?
It does. Am I allowed to
please.
judge you?
Yeah. Wreck my argument.
I mean, our relationship is the argument. No, I agree. My concern, and hear me out here, my concern with age gap relationships that are portrayed is that they're almost always portrayed as a prepubescent fantasy or as an early youth fantasy. And that is inherently problematic because, like, just from knowledge of psychology, your frontal lobe is not developed until you're like 25-ish.
Right.
And you're not really thinking through the actions or consequences of things. And like even a small age gap can have significant consequences in terms of maturity and experience and how you move through the world and the way that you exert power on other individuals. And I do think that it's very prototypical in the majority of age gap relationships, including ours, for the woman to be younger and the man to be older. And I do think that one is the socially accepted script.
Yep.
And it very rarely goes the other way. So what I would love to see is, in general, age gap relationships that take place in like late 20s to 30s, and then where the woman is actually the older one for once. And there are some interesting stereotypes around that as well. Like, we call women who pursue younger men cougars. We don't really have a term for men that goes the other way.
Men!
Just men! They exist.
I've read Jane Austen.
Oh my god. So, yeah, I do agree that, like, in that particular context as a prepubescent fantasy, that there can be toxicity there. I have never, in my own experience, encountered a relationship that was young that had an age gap that was a good idea. So...
Valid.
If you're moving out of your house and, like, your girlfriend's still taking grade 9 science, there's a problem. Yeah. I have concerns.
To take it, like, even broader, like, I can think of... I do not have, like, a large manga, like, repertoire to draw from, but, you know, it's a magical girl genre. I can't think of a magical woman genre equivalent.
Yeah, it's associated
and
with
I
youth.
can think of a, well, basically magical dude equivalent.
So do you think that, like, Sailor Moon, A, is sexualized, and B, can she be sexualized and empowered at the same time, or do those two things contradict?
I think once you put it into a teen setting, doing both of those at the same time, well, it depends a lot on the audience. And the fact of the matter is, like, I think, I don't know what, like, recent work there's been done on Sailor Moon, like, but, like, older audience is the audience now. People looking back on this work, probably. And I think the sexualization and empowerment there is very much a thing. I'll give a lot of credit to the queer side of things there, too. I know a lot of men and women who feel empowered by putting on the sailor suit.
Because it's fun.
Yeah. But in this volume, at least, I think there's more, like, if there's an empowerment, it's I can be sexy for the 17-year-old more than I am successfully beating up these guys in a war I don't understand.
Yeah.
I mean, there's like some, like, she rescues her friends a lot. That's empowering.
Yeah.
And rescues a lot of innocent people and women, especially if I think back to the specifics of like what tends to be the cursed object. Yeah, I think it is more a romance than a superhero type story, at least in this volume. And that whatever empowerment is there, it's the asterisk kind.
But I do think the anime is more sexualized than the manga. I will say that. And I do think that one of the things that hovers over my consideration is, again, Takuchi's statements that she lost control of this thing. So, I don't know, the early manga is a little bit different, I think, than some of the later iterations. Ren has her hand up.
To make,
We're ready.
I would argue that the entire basis of empowerment and sexuality, even when we're talking about a youth population, I do agree that part of it is the audience and who's consuming it.
Right.
But I do also think that it is that matter of choice, right? Like, I am all for people of pretty much any age wearing crop tops and tube tops or whatever the hell they want to wear. And I think this is a similar argument. But they have to do that with knowledge of the impact it might have on their decisions and their perception in the world. And they have to do that of their own free will and consent. And I think that's the same thing here with Sailor Moon, is that, sure, she could be doing some things that are empowering. She could be doing some things that are embracing her sexuality. But especially, I would argue, because the author lost control of it and didn't take it in the direction that they wanted to take it, that is inherently disempowering because it is not then a choice.
Right. How do you feel about the whole pleasing tuxedo mask that we've been talking about? Does that still give her room for consent?
There are some ways in which I want to say yes. There are some ways in which I want to say no. From a personal standpoint, I don't believe that actions taken for the sake of pleasing others are inherently empowering, because they aren't for you and your own individual identity. That's the same thing as forming an identity for the sake of someone else.
Right.
And we're all guilty of that.
For sure.
Any relationship that anyone has, there are going to be concessions that people make in terms of like how they move through or present through the world. Like, you could dress up for my parents when we see my parents, and you don't normally like to.
No.
That's a concession
no,
you make for me. But that isn't inherently empowering, I would argue.
I look pretty powerful in a suit, though.
You look so hot in a suit.
Got weird.
Yeah, don't make me flirt with you in front of your friend. But I do think that there is also the possibility for there to be room for like sexuality and presentation of it for the self,
right,
that is then perceived positively.
Right.
I think my concern is that it's too focused on Tuxedo Mask in particular, and that wanting to appeal to and appease him in that way for it to be particularly empowering. What I would love to see is Usagi just wanting to look hot,
right,
for her own sake, which sounds so weird to say about a 14-year-old. But like, you go, girl. I believe that when it's done with consent and knowledge of how it impacts perception and stuff like that, and like that can be very empowering. Like, as even when I was 14 myself, I wanted to look good for me,
right,
and that's something that I think every young girl, regardless of age, should be able to explore and have their own power and identity around.
One of the kind of comparisons that I was thinking as we were talking is the exploration of sexuality and empowerment in the horror subgenre, where there's actually been some really good academic work, including on how queer representation can function in the horror genre. I'm thinking of Nightmare on Elm Street 2, which everyone should watch as like the most obvious queer allegory in like the history of the genre. I think Sailor Moon, in its first chapter at least, is a horror. It's constructed as it. So we could argue that what we see is that same sort of metaphor of a young woman being pushed towards adulthood through these intertwining factors of monstrous threat and the idealism of the, in this case, tuxedo mask. Or I'm overreading.
No, that's very real.
Yeah, and I would agree on especially the way the first volume focuses so much on, like, energy vampire type things. Like, here's another haunted object that is draining people. Or the bus that gets stolen feels very urban legendy. But the first one in particular, with the wraith that is stealing people through jewelry is,
Okay.
Yeah.
I made a valid comparison.
You did.
Consent.
I would also say that, like, one of the things I really like about Sailor Moon is that I think it's drawing on quite accurately those societal pressures, almost forcing Usagi to become more mature and more woman-like you were talking about briefly. The jewelry that sucks people's souls. In some way, jewelry and being in possession of it is seen as very much a token of womanhood in a lot of different ways.
Yeah.
Like, having a man buy jewelry for you is considered like a dating trope in a lot of different ways. And
the way the girls are excited to go to
the way the girls are excited to go to the jewelry store in the first place, and, like, knowing that, like, their mothers have jewelry and that, like, they get to explore that aspect of their femininity. That's, like, a growth area for them that is then turned into a torturous and kind of scary area because it's literally sucking their souls.
Yeah.
And, like, even if we're talking about the relationship with Tuxedo Mask, even that positive pressure in a lot of ways of wanting to be appealing for someone else and tempting to someone else, that is still a societal pressure that young women have to deal with as they're growing up. They have to navigate wanting to have positive interactions with other people, whether it be sexual or romantic, or even just on a friendly capacity. And they have to navigate how they present themselves in order to achieve those goals and figure out what authentic presentation of themselves gets them what they want in a lot of different ways. And so I think it's talking about a lot of very valid societal pressures that are relevant for teenage girls.
Like, I like this volume is very Monster of the Week in a way, and I like how almost everyone is a different, like, kind of pressure. Like, here's navigating the bus system alone. Here is the bridal shop, which doubles down on the jewelry stuff. And here's here's an extra pressure to cram school. You might also lose your soul.
Yeah. Almost like the Buffy the Vampire Slayer thing that it's gotten a lot of academic traction with, in terms of using the monster of the week, the horror of the week, as you said, to represent different key anxieties of adolescence.
And again, like, for this volume, every single one of them has a pretty boy at the final threat of them.
So
stay away from boys.
Stay away from boys. Boys are gross. Stay away from boys is something I say to my daughters constantly.
Yeah, and you shouldn't, but we'll talk about that later.
Boys are gross. Stay away from boys. So, maybe coming back to Michael's point a little bit, people still read Sailor Moon. We're still reprinting Sailor Moon. It's still celebrated. Do you think at this point it's being appreciated exclusively nostalgically, or does it still have something to offer to contemporary readers?
I found something here that I've seen occasional episodes. I had not read the first volume through before, and I found something I liked here. Yeah.
I thought it was fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Respect.
No. Well, I mean, I think as someone who hasn't actually really encountered Sailor Moon before, I kind of understand why some of my friends were obsessed with it in high school.
Yeah.
And I very much see the appeal, and I do kind of want to watch more of it. So I would definitely say that it's appealing to contemporary audiences and how they navigate the world. I think, assuming in general that things that have age to them or like a history don't offer contemporary audiences something is often false. You know?
Yeah.
You can learn things even if it's not always #woke. But this is also coming from the girl who's like, one of my comfort movies is Thumbelina, which is not exactly feminist.
It's true. Solo Leveling.
Solo Leveling! Oh god, yeah. Not feminist either.
My reaction to it, I like it from an academic perspective. I like arguing about its femininity. I think it surfaces conversations that we should be having about all manga and all anime. What I appreciate about it sort of innately is just how unapologetic it is. It's just, I'm going to make the girliest thing ever. I'm going to fully embrace femininity, and she's going to blow up monsters too. Fuck you.
I appreciate that.
I love the confidence of Takuchi's writing, and it makes me really sad that Takuchi was interfered with, because I do think about what we could have gotten otherwise. But again, what we got is iconic. It's a trailblazer. One of the reasons why our podcast here could even exist.
Yeah.
Were it not for the transculturation of Sailor Moon. So no, I'm very enamored with it in terms of its academic function, which I know is me intellectualizing. And I appreciate, again, some of the ways that it's written and the ways that it's represented. I like it. I think Usagi is iconic and deserves to be iconic.
I just hope you know that I'm going to make you watch all of Sailor Moon.
Okay.
This is non-negotiable.
I very much appreciated the way the manga version fully explains all of the ways that she is punning on bunnies.
Yes, that's important. Again, it's just so fun. It's trying to just have a good time. I think I respect that. Okay, so final thoughts, Michael, on Sailor Moon. What are you taking away from this in terms of representations of gender and sexuality?
I think, honestly, my number one takeaway is the degree to which, so much of what I engage with now was informed by this work, and I'm grateful to be able to see some of those taproots a little more clearly.
Yeah, I'm gonna just steal Michael's as well. Just the foundational insights you get from reading this. As you said, it helps to explain every other piece of pop culture that has followed in its footsteps, either subtly or really obviously, like Madoka.
It's so good, though.
Yeah, it unlocks a level of understanding, I would argue. I think it's pivotal to know Sailor Moon, to know representations of gender in manga.
My takeaway is that being a teenage girl is awful, but I knew that already. So.
I kind of heard that was easy and just
Wow, really?
privilege.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
Are you sure? Because, if I had known being a teenage girl was easy, oh my god, my anxieties and depression just gone.
Fair. Okay, Michael, is there anything you would like to plug or anywhere people might want to find you?
You can find me on Blue Sky at Person of Con, and I'll plug one of the ancestors, or no, the other way around, descendants of Sailor Moon. My wife and I are rewatching Steven Universe.
Nice.
And it's very fun, very gay, very fun.
I support this.
That's perfect. I'll plug that Michael and I did a podcast called 3-Panel Contrast for 2 years? 3 years?
One of those numbers.
Yeah.
One of those numbers.
With Dr. Anna Papard. And it was a lot of fun. It was my first podcast venture. Do you have anything you'd like to plug?
No, I'm just here and I'm happy I got into grad school. We got to change the intro now. Because,
I know.
Yeah, because I'm so cool now. I have
Exactly.
I have so much root.
For our next episode, we're going to be doing the manga Nana to Kaoru, Black Label, which is described as the manga version of 50 Shades of Grey.
Which I recently made you watch.
Which you recently made me watch. It's so bad.
It's horrible, but it's fun.
Yes, it's so bad it's funny. Except the third one. The third one tried to be serious.
Yeah.
And it felt like a TV movie, I'll be honest with you. So we'll be able to talk about representations of BDSM in manga, which will hopefully expand our ability to discuss BDSM symbols in other manga. Again, things that are more mainstream. How BDSM shows up in Dragon Ball Z and things like that.
Kinky.
Should be fun. Dragon Ball Z is explicitly sexual. We have discussed this many times on this podcast.
Anyway.
So.
The longing stares into each other's eyes.
We're the ones telling the truth.